Selections, the human music recommendation service. My name is Liam Flanagan and I'll be your musical guide, recommending you the best in music wherever and whenever it came from. You're currently watching our interview series where each month I interview a guest curator. These curators know music inside out and we'll be discussing top quality recommendations in depth. I want you all to welcome today to Eclectic Selections, Andy Hickford, aka the Sustainable Energy and Air Quality Project Manager at Leeds City Council. No, that's not why he's here, everybody. He's here to talk about his 20 years plus of DJ experience and his own eclectic selections, his own musical recommendations today. So Andy, how are you?
I'm okay, thanks. You had me panicked for a minute then. Usually when people
I deliberately did that because I want the thumbnail.
Yeah, I normally think, oh, I must have had a presentation ready to do something or other. And I was like, I haven't got a presentation, I've just got some records in my hand. So no.
It's a kind of presentation.
I'm okay, yeah.
So, and where did you start?
Start collecting records?
And DJing.
So yeah, by the time I was like a teenager, I think I was already down that slippery slope of being a bit of a record collector and a music addict. And I've never really been able to shake off that addiction to buying records many decades later. So I think that's where it all really started. So I'd love to say, yeah, that's when I started going to Shoom and started DJing. But no, that would be an absolute lie because I lived in a market in the Midlands.
Yeah.
But we used to hire out working men's clubs, and there was a guy we knew who was a mobile DJ, so he brought his rig down, and we'd like just play some of our records and. You wouldn't say we were DJing, we were just putting records on. It was brilliant, It was great fun. And yeah, did the usual thing, went to university, DJed a couple of house parties and stuff. But I was really just a record buyer and a wannabe DJ. It was only really when I moved to Leeds in the late 90s into 2000, things like the licensing laws changed. And so it became easier for bars to have DJs. And then it broke down this thing where it was probably that 80s, 90s, there was nightclubs and they would have DJs. And it was quite a closed shop really, unless you knew someone who worked in a record shop or you knew promoters. It was difficult to get DJ gigs unless you had a real mouth on you. You were able to really be bold enough to put your foot in the door. But when I think the sort of bar culture started, it really opened things up for people who probably had a decent record collection, but wouldn't class themselves as DJs, but wanted to try and be one. So that was brilliant. But I think kind of on a slightly more serious note, I was quite ill, quite a few years ago, and sort of coming out of recovery from that, I had this feeling that actually this is really good, but I want to do a bit more. I want to do some different things. I want to have more fun with it, I think, and have different experiences, DJ in different places. And
so is that went downtown science?
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, so kind of over sort of period of time, I made friends with a couple of other guys. Jim, aka Technologist, who actually I met on Twitter, but it turned out he lived around the corner from me. But so yeah, we kind of started to meet and have a couple of beers, talk about records, and then he introduced me to someone he knew called Jack, aka the Boogie Monster, who had DJ'd when in his Nottingham, not DJ'd for a while, and we got together and we were like, yeah, come on, let's all start DJing again. Do some stuff, more interesting stuff. So I think with that slight power of numbers, we went and approached a couple of different places in Leeds, and because I'd already done certain bits and pieces and had some residencies, it was like a foot in the door. But so we started Downtown Science, and I suppose quite quickly we managed to get quite a few different bits and pieces sort of under our belt. We played across quite a few different venues in Leeds, and they were lovely venues, either old mill buildings or big warehouse.
Yeah, Leeds is full of all those great old industrial buildings for doing that sort of thing.
Absolutely, yeah. We're busier than ever now, and then we've been really lucky in terms of some of the other opportunities we've had to DJ with other people. Mixmaster Morris came up to Leeds to join. We'd set up a night for him to come and join us, which was really cool. That was a social media thing. He and I started to chat on Facebook, and he was listening to some of the mixes I posted on MixCloud, and at the beginning of the year he said there was a list of like 5 people he wanted to DJ with, and I was shocked to see I was one of them. So I was like, right, this has got to happen. We got him.
Yeah, you got to jump on those opportunities and
absolutely. So we got him up, and he ended up spending a week in Leeds.
Wow.
We ended up sorting out about 3 gigs and hang out with us, and yeah, so things like that happen.
That sounds great. So I feel like you very much expressed something that I've noticed when we've chatted online and stuff, is that you have a deep passion for music and you like quite an eclectic range of genres. So I feel like it's quite a natural point now to move into your recommendations. So the first one, I apologize if I mispronounce this artist's name. Vertal Paradigm Shifting is the album.
Yeah.
So I felt like that was an interesting one. Very jazzy, chilled out, and I picked up on maybe a bit of a Jay Dilla influence, maybe.
Yeah, it's definitely. I've got the album here.
There we go.
It comes across okay. And I've got to give who works at Vinyl Whistle record shop in Headingley in Leeds, but he's also behind the Jazz Revelations blog, because he initially put me onto the album. They got some copies of the album in, and he's quite jealous because the copy I've got is lovely blue.
Oh, coloured vinyl, very nice.
Yeah, so well, purists would probably say, "Oh no, you want the black one," but I'm a sucker.
I like coloured vinyl myself.
I like coloured vinyl, yeah. So, but yeah, he put me onto it. So I picked up the blue. I picked up that copy, which is the first press of the album, and yeah, I thought this is great. The whole album's brilliant. It's got that real mix of sort of jazz, but with definite like hip hop, Dilla, Madlib type hip hop approach. But it's not straight like boom bap or anything. It's definitely jazzy hip hop, clearly informed by the sort of 22A, Henry Wu, Yusuf Kamal style of playing. You know, there's sort of jazz, but there's definitely like drum and bass influences in there as well as hip hop. And so anyway, I was like, this album's brilliant, love it. The reason Ben will be jealous, he was a bit jealous, was because what really sealed it for me was when I saw them live. They did a little tour around some record shops around the country, and other venues as well, but they came up and played at Vinyl Whistle in October. So Ben asked me to DJ before they came on and after as well. But yeah, I was able to play some records, and I was playing sort of new jazz and pro compete and the Dilla type stuff, and ended up speaking with Ajit and Theo from the Parliament. And again, it was one of those where they were just like, yeah, I love all these records, love this, love that, what's that, want to buy that. And yeah, it just really, really great chatting with them. And then they came on and played. And when they play big gigs, they'll have other musicians with them. But on this little tour they did, there was only the two of them. But they created incredible sound, really great, quite freeform sort of jam style of playing, really talented musicians. And so I think the only thing physically they've released is that album, which is a mixtape style album. But yeah, hearing them play live and really made me think, and I really hope to hear some more stuff from them this year in 2022. But as a starting point, I'd say Paradigm Shifting is well worth checking out for anyone that is into that kind of thing. That sort of jazzy hit, definitely that's sort of, which is really popular at the moment, isn't it? And that, I suppose they call it plays like sort of West London new jazz type thing. But
yeah, it's coming off that sort of popped up a few years back. And yeah, you pick up on hip hop influences, and it took a couple of listens. I think it definitely is one of those where if you keep on listening, you're going to be rewarded more.
Yeah, it's not
hearing those different sounds in it.
It's not an immediate album. Basically, it's a double album. It's 4 sides and it's 4 tracks because it is in that kind of mixtape style. And whilst on paper there is like I think 3 tracks per side, like it's a 12-track album. They each side progresses into each other, and it is one of those that rewards repeat listening. I enjoyed the album. When I went to hear them live and then went back to listen to the album, it made a bit more sense because you appreciated the way they play live, and you could see the kind of band they are.
Yeah, the way you're describing it and the way I'm remembering the record is, that sounds like quite a different experience. I wouldn't have imagined them as being virtuosic musicians. I thought a lot of it was like they were just really good at editing and programming, and they could fool the ear into thinking that they were good at music, but musicians.
Yeah, the way they were just kind of like jamming, and what they were able to produce with just the two of them. Andrew was on drums, and Theo had like a couple of keyboards and like pedals and things. It was like it was one of those where you're like, every now and then a couple of us were like, there's only two of them, isn't there?
Not a bunch of people behind a screen.
Yeah. It's not that big a record shop to hide people behind the screen. So yeah, really good. And yeah, definitely. They were really nice guys, and yeah, I really wish them well.
So that brings us to recommendation number 2, which is Loco Rimes Calada. By a certain ratio, which in Spanish is crazy remixed.
I'm glad you pronounced that, not me. That's why I think when I first said to you that was one of my recommendations, I've just called it remix. I think certain ratios. I think all my other recommendations, I've tried to pick ones where perhaps they might not be quite as well known, or I've got a bit of a link, or I've met someone, or where I want to give support to a local producer or shop, or a certain ratio. Obviously very different. They've been around nearly as long as I've been alive, and they don't need any introduction. But I've included this as a recommendation because I always liked certain ratio. I didn't come across them until the 90s, sort of the early 90s, when they released their Manchester album, which was very much fitted into that Manchester sound. It was the same era as 808 State, Happy Mondays.
Yeah. And as they progressed from the post-punk thing into dance music by that point.
Absolutely, yeah. I think late 70s they formed, and so they went post-punk, and then they was like introduced sort of funk, jazz. But yeah, by that album, which was when I first knew of them, it was definitely that it was that electronic indie dance, whatever that means, sort of. So I mean,
you can still hear those early records and like the bass lines and
absolutely.
So I went back and listened to Loco, so that I was like, oh, how much has it changed from the original? And they definitely still, it is as if they've sampled themselves from like 1979 or something when you hear them bass
definitely line. But then last couple of years they came back on the scene again and produced some tracks with Denise Johnson, who obviously sadly passed. And so I saw these EPs had come out, and they were like, I think a lot of them were like studio jams, and so I picked those up, and I was like, yeah, these are really good. And then obviously the Loco album came out, and then they toured at the end of last year, and went to see them in Leeds at the Belgrave Music Hall in November, and they were absolutely fantastic. To be fair, the crowd was probably the most singular audiences I've ever seen at a gig. I think there was half a dozen of us that went, and there was 2 women with us, and then while I was there I bumped into an old friend, Danielle, and I think they were the only 3 women in the event. Apart from that, it was probably all blokes in their late 40s, early 50s, with beer guts and anoraks on, and I include myself in that. It was absolutely,
it's that classic post-punk late 70s Manchester look.
Absolutely,
it happens to be almost 50 years
but they were absolutely brilliant, and Leeds sometimes has a bit of a reputation of being a tough gig. Somehow managed to sound chaotic and punk with excellent musicianship as well.
I think what took me a while to get my head around them is that they had this weird combination of like chaotic trumpet playing, and some of them have got very punky levels of musicianship, and then they've always had a great rhythm section and everything, and it's confusing. It confused me a lot at first listening to them, but once I digested it properly, so but actually it works.
But really just great energy across all of them, the whole performance, and it definitely had. There was tracks with just cowbell going and like quite raw, but then they'd managed to get like really rhythmic sound, really rhythmic and strong grooves going, and then almost club influence. Then sometimes they were able to transform into like almost like a jazz funk band as well. Just really great to hear them.
And I would say that definitely comes across in their choice of remixes as well, is that they have such a diverse sound. So they've shipped these tracks out to people who come from all sorts of different genres and different styles of dance music, and do a really fine job of remixing them. Thank you all for watching this video. If you want to support Eclectic Selections and join our community, there are various ways that you can do that. Number one, you can like, comment, and subscribe right here on YouTube. This helps our video get noticed by the YouTube algorithm, and it helps other music lovers like you find great music. You can, two, follow us over on Twitter. Here you'll get the latest news and you'll get extra recommendations. You'll be able to keep up to date with everything Eclectic Selections. You can join our Ko-fi, which is just like Patreon, so you can support us and you'll get access to extra content like private playlists with loads of recommendations, extra video recommendations from our guests, all that good stuff. And there's more coming in the future. Join our Discord community where you can chat with other music lovers and myself about music and other subjects too. All the links for all of that down in the description in our link tree. Thanks again for watching, and until next Thursday, keep it eclectic.